Welcome to Body Bags, presented by the Kokomo Lantern. I'm Jeremy Geiger, one of the co-owners of City of First Cremation and Funeral Services. So we have a gentleman that works for us, and this episode's going to kind of evolve around that experience for him and some of the questions that he gave me. He recently lost a close person to him. It wasn't a family member. It was just a close personal friend, and he asked if he could make the removal and be a part of the cremation process and stuff. And I gave him that opportunity to be a part of it, and he kind of he felt pretty strong and confident that he would be able to do this. And little did he know it was going to be one of the toughest, trying times that he's had. And he followed it up with, well, have you ever done anybody that you knew? So I'm going to kind of dive into that question of, have you ever done anybody that you knew? I've had the opportunity to serve several close friends and family members over the years, and boy, is it difficult, even for somebody that I feel is seasoned as myself. It's not an easy task. Some funeral directors won't try to do it, or they've learned that it's not okay for them to do that. I've performed in the early years removals for these people, and maybe assisted on the embalmings, and then helped with the dressing, casketing, and the funeral services. As time's gone on, I've gotten more involved. I got more comfortable knowing what I was getting ready to experience. It is some of the most high emotion times that you're encountering. There's a lot of memories that are coming back to you. Conversations that you probably wouldn't have been able to recall before, you're able to recall during this moment and private time that you have with them. You are definitely more gentle and delicate with these people that you know and have a personal connection with. And that's what made it more difficult for the individual that worked for us. Was he's had the experience to go on removals by himself, and he's always been very gentle and respectful with the other families that we served. But to watch him unload the removal cot from the vehicle with the most delicate care is pretty interesting to watch and see. And then when we started getting fingerprints, you could tell that he was really trying to make sure he got the best prints possible. And then he got to a point where he thought that he had really good prints, and he even brought them over to me to confirm. He wanted it printed out on a paper just to verify that what we're seeing on the computer and on the printout were good enough for what they wanted to do later on. They chose to cremate this individual. He was here for that cremation process. He didn't really get to look at the deceased too much prior to the cremation. Some of the things that he's seen about the deceased due to the event that caused the death led him to ask me more questions of why are there abrasions in this area? Why does the extremity look like this? I think it was really good for him to be able to ask those questions and get the answers that he needed, versus maybe being a family member that would have come in for a witness or private ID and seen that and just let that experience turn into a negative thing, or even turn into a series of maybe bad questions or bad thoughts of how it got to that way. this individual, he got very good information about that. He was able to talk with the coroner's office when he was there, getting this person about the incident that happened. So he was a little prepared for what was going to be inside there. Some of my first interactions with people that I've known were definitely coroner's cases where I was getting them out of a body bag. One of the first ones that I can recall, it was an embalming. So I had to get them out and get them positioned on the table and set their features, which would be closing their mouth and eyes, and trying to do that dignified and not think about the pain that it may be causing, because that person's gone. At that point, I'm thinking of creating that final memory. I'm analyzing the body to see about what vessel selection I would be choosing, how strong I should run my embalming fluid. Are there lacerations or abrasions that I'm seeing that I need to treat to prevent them from leaking or weeping over time? And why I'm looking at that is it's a person that I know. I'm thinking of, hey, I remember riding my bike and we crashed our bike and we got scraped up. Man, I wonder if they still have that scar on their knee. Or remember when we were out camping and used gas to start the fire in the morning, and the next thing you know, the gas can's on fire and they burnt their ring finger and they had a scar on there. Is that scar still there? Is it still visible? Those were some of the thoughts that I had as I was performing these embalmings. And then when I got to meet with the family or present the loved one to the family for the first viewing at the funeral home, just kind of standing back and looking at their reactions as they went up to see their loved one. I'm very critical about that because I know the effort and the work that it took to create that experience for them, and I'm always hopeful that it's a positive experience for them. I know that it's so important that they see that deceased individual, but it's gotta be in the right setting for them. Explaining it to a close family member or a close friend that, unfortunately I've done everything that I can and it's just not a best situation to see their face or see them at all. It's rather tough because you know that you have seen them and you're denying that from them. It's tough. It's a lot harder than trying to explain it to a family that you don't know or don't have that connection to, because you just feel the answer's no. And it's the reason why I have a license and I sit on this side of the table. You bring that family or that friendship relationship into it. It's kind of like, doggone, I know it's not fair that I seen it, and it's not fair that I'm withholding that from you. But have the confidence, if that person is telling you that, hey, it's not the best situation, the memories that you do have are way more important than what I could provide you in a traumatic experience. I have been dealing with a lot of families lately that they feel and tell me that they are capable of seeing their loved one. I've had a family recently tell me that it wasn't fair that the coroner's office or EMA told them that it wasn't the best situation to see their loved one. They don't know what's best for that person for that moment of grief. Even though it seems very wrong to you and I and very gruesome, that might be a part of closure for them. Now, being very clear and honest to them is extremely important, and I think being descriptive on the graphic scene to them before they approach it is where the key to that is, so they have that preparedness. And it's definitely better, in my opinion, to maybe overhype that severity of it, so then when they do see, oh, you're right, they did get their arm stuck in the auger. Man, I thought you said it would be like really hamburgery and stringy. It just seems like it's severed. It's not as bad as I thought. being able to provide that for them is extremely important. Extremely important. So does it make it easier for us as a funeral home employee? No, absolutely not. That burden is even more because we're trying to be very delicate and include you on some very intimate details that most families don't experience. But that leads to the other families as well. It makes those maybe a little easier. It makes us look at our families and our friends and loved ones a little more appreciative of that time that we're spending with them, because it's more important to remember the positive side, the happy moments, because we know that eventually we're going to be there, whether it's the person that makes the removal or it's that person that gets to come in and say, hey, I'm their best friend and I'm also a funeral director. It makes that other director a little bit nervous, going, oh boy, they're going to pick me apart. It's not about that. It's just letting them know that, hey, I know that what you did wasn't easy and I appreciate it. We may see something that we want addressed before the family gets there, before we let that general public in, that may be something bothersome to us, but it also may have been a conversation that we had with that deceased. Because my friends and family, they do get to hear more unfiltered, raw stories than I'm able to express here. They do have names that go with these stories that you don't get. So that's why it may be important that we get that opportunity, even though we may not be that person to perform those services for you. But we've got that connection to them. We may have had some pretty interesting conversations. So it does make a difference, and it makes it super, super hard when we get that next call of, hey, we just lost another close friend of ours and we've got to go and get them picked up at the coroner's office, or we've got to go get them from the hospital. It's difficult for us, but we take a lot of pride in that. I wouldn't take away any of my experiences, the opportunities of the individuals that I've served, that were my friends or close family members. It's made me grow as a funeral director. It's made me grow as a person to appreciate these moments that we get to have with one another. The individual that works for me, I gave him a little bit of time off because I knew that what he went through was really tough. He was in a little bit of a shock. He's also a war veteran, so that's where he felt that he had the bravery and courage to be able to do this, and then realize that it's a lot more challenging and delicate than he ever thought. But I've had him back since, and I've sent him out on his own a couple times, and he's come back and he's been good, and never brought up any of the memories from picking up his family member. But then I've got to tag along with him on some of the more recent removals just to see his demeanor and actions. And starting out to this point, you could definitely tell he's taken a lot more care, a lot more empathy when he's dealing with these deceased. Not that he wasn't before, but there's things that he's seen when he was moving a person or loading them that maybe didn't bother him before, but then he did it with his loved one and thought, oh, well, I didn't really like that. And if I do it like this, or I load the cot this way, then it doesn't maybe bump them around, or I have them strapped in a certain way. It's interesting to kind of see, and it's neat to experience as an owner, to watch that growth, because I'd seen it in myself, but I never knew what that growth would be like for somebody else, and would they experience that care and compassion that I did over those years. So to kind of conclude to a story with, have you ever done anybody that you knew? So right out of college, I lived in Peru, and I had a really good friend that lived in the field directly behind me, and he had a close friend that lived with him. We all became buddies. His name was Evan, and there was one day we were drinking. We went on a tequila bender, and we thought we had to try all the tequilas over the summer and see which one was the best. They were all terrible, to be honest with you. But I got called one day to do an embalming at the funeral home, and I come back. Typically, when I was working and wearing a suit, I always had a white undershirt on, and typically when I get off work, I take my button-down shirt and leave my white undershirt on and go about my day. Well, I had my white undershirt on, did the embalming. Remember when I talked about pressure and flow? Well, sometimes pressure and flow gets a little out of control in the vascular system, but you're building up that pressure, and when you're done and you go to remove the cannula, sometimes that pressure's still in that vascular system and it'll squirt out at you. It's not all the time. So sometimes it's worse than others as well. So I was expecting it to be just a normal little dribble, nothing crazy. I pull that cannula out and I get sprayed. Got a big pink Kool-Aid looking mark across my shirt. So I finish the embalming. I go back to the barn where we're drinking and hanging out, and Evan's sitting there and he looks over at me and goes, "What the hell? Did you make Kool-Aid?" No, I was at work. Why do you think I made Kool-Aid? Are you thirsty? You want some Kool-Aid? He goes, "No, you got like Kool-Aid all over your shirt." And I laughed. I said, "No, Evan, that's embalming fluid." And he was like, "Oh, that's crazy. I would have never have guessed that you would have come back with embalming fluid." And told him how it got there, and he understood. From that moment on, he said, "When I die, I want you to be the one to take care of me." Okay, Evan, like, here I am, I'm 23 years old, and I have no idea where life's gonna take me, let alone where your life's gonna take you. But sure, I'll embalm you, Evan. I have no idea how this will ever work. I ended up moving away, losing connection with Evan, ended up back in the area, back here in Kokomo. And I was working for a funeral home in town, and I got a text message one night, and it said, "Hey, can you go to Rushville and pick up this person and then take them back to the funeral home and embalm them?" So, yeah, I can do all that. Didn't give me any names or anything. So I get there and I get the body transferred. My helper filled out the paperwork. I didn't even know the name. I just knew I was after Evan. Person had a real long beard, longer than mine. It was out of control. And I thought, doggone, I need to find out if we need to shave Evan or if we're leaving the beard. To me, I would have left it because how long it was. And I talked to the family and they said, "Oh no, I'm glad you asked. We forgot to tell you it needs to be clean shaved." Shaving them prior to the embalming is way better than shaving them after, because I'll get razor burn no matter what. So I got him all clean shaved, and as soon as I got it all wiped off, I knew Evan. I knew exactly who Evan was. Evan was the gentleman on my table. And I thought, holy shit. The guy asked and pleaded with me for so many years that you need to embalm me, you need to take care of me. I would have never guessed in a million years that it would have actually happened. Do I think that Evan had some kind of play into this? Probably. Was the family surprised? Absolutely. So the embalming takes place, and then the next day comes, I get to meet with the family. I don't bring it up with Evan's mom. I let her tell me what we're gonna do on the funeral service and what selections need to be made. After it ended, and I set my pen down, I said, "Okay, now I'm gonna talk to you as a friend, as somebody on the street." And she said, "Okay, what's going on?" I said, "I'm really sorry to tell you this, but I know your son. And she snapped and she goes, were you the one that lived above the funeral home? I said, I was. She goes, oh my, Evan would be over the top happy knowing that you were the one that truly did his funeral and embalmed him. So it made a huge impact on me. It made a big difference. When it come to the funeral, it was me and one other individual that represented the group of friends. Nobody else would be willing to come. It's pretty sad. Pretty sad. Did Evan make the best choices in life? Probably not. Did these choices contribute to his death? Absolutely. Are they reasons to not be there for your friends? Nope. Absolutely not. It's always important to be there. Support them. You never know where it's going to lead to. Did it make it easier? Nope. Will it make it easier for the others that I get to serve? Absolutely. So, continue to share that with Brandon. Did it get easier? Nope. Have I served a family that I've known? Yep. Will I continue? Unfortunately, I will. So will Brandon. As long as he continues down this, he'll get the, what I call privilege and honor to lead them to their final resting place, whether it's burial or cremation. It's one of the most dignified things I feel you can do for your friend or family member. You just have to be prepared. It's not an easy situation. They're not easy emotions as you see. I've told you before, they're burdens that we carry and we'll always carry. They're not just your loss. They're not just your burden. We'll always be there walking that walk with you. It stays with us. So this does conclude our services here at City of First Cremation. As always, please like, follow, and subscribe to the Kokomo Lanterns. There are a lot of wonderful podcasts that are on there, but this does conclude this episode of Body Bags. Thank you.